episode 2, folks. Take it away, Chris.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. You're listening to Unqualified Opinions with Hambones and Megatron. And this is our second episode ever. So we're still a bit new to everything. This is episode 2, Managing Stress and Anxiety. This is, this should be a fun episode. We've definitely all got plenty of stress and anxiety to deal with in life.
Speaking of stress and anxiety, I have adjusted my mic like 15 times in the past 30 seconds. Chris is like, pick a position and roll with it.
Right. You've got a perfect microphone position now, so...
Am I too close to it like I was last time?
No, you're...
Do I need to back up?
No, you're golden. Like, that's perfect.
How about now?
If you're getting softer as you get closer...
Too close now?
You're good.
Mic check.
Okay. Now our audience is just going to be upset because you're going to deafen their ears.
Sorry. Anyways, like Chris said, this episode is about stress and anxiety, so we'll cover that at the very end, but right after we spend some time shooting the shit, because I think that's important. Hopefully we'll be able to connect with you on some level. Yeah. Where do we want to start? We have favorite hobbies, shows, etc.
Yeah, we were going to sort of do a continuation of our last episode, which is getting to know the hosts a bit. I think we called that one Meet the Hosts. So you've already met us. Now you're just going to learn a little more about the weird stuff that we like. So I'm particularly lately into things that are just insanely absurd. And also things that are a little bit quasi-scientific, I guess. So many of our listeners out there probably already know, I say many like we have many, 2 of the listeners out there probably know.
Y'all.
Some of you may know, a couple of you may know what I'm hinting at. Of course, that's Rick and Morty. It's as absurd and quasi-scientific as it gets. And I like some of the themes that run through it, especially the multiverse theme. The idea of an infinite number of alternate universes and alternate versions of yourself making different decisions about different things and everything forking into different directions. I just think that's really cool. Yeah. That's
Fucking or forking?
Both.
You won't get that joke if you didn't listen to episode 1.
Right. That was great.
Go back.
That was a good, definitely. Don't skip the first episode.
I know to the next episode.
I know it's an hour and 10 minutes long, and it's full of just bullshit, but, that's what we're here for. So, there's a movie coming out that I'm particularly excited about. It's called Everything Everywhere All at Once, where a character is somehow brought into the reality of the multiverse and somehow has to do something to help in the bigger picture of those of the multiverses, and it just seems really funny and heartfelt and dramatic, all rolled into one. It seems like a really cool movie. I'm excited to see it. Megan, what are your favorite hobbies and shows or things?
Etc.
What are all your favorite things, Megan? Lay them out.
God, where do I start?
Now.
Okay, I'm just gonna go into something that I like.
5 minutes. I'm just kidding.
5 minutes. Oh my God, where do I start? Lately, as a hobby, I've been designing some cornhole boards. Like Chris and I cannot get over that name, cornhole.
Yeah.
It's a bag you throw in a hole, and that's pretty much it. It's really difficult, and a lot of people have different strategies at throwing this bag, which I find interesting as I watch people play it. But yeah, you can get really technical with like needing a specific type of corn in the bag and like the distance, and people get really into it. But it's just like a long game for me. I always thought they were generic
bean bags, and that cornhole was just a joke about your cornhole.
Okay.
But they're actually dried corn kernels in the bag.
Yeah.
And so the corn goes in the hole.
The corn goes in the bag and the bag goes in the hole.
Right. So in effect, the corn goes in the hole, and that's why it's called cornhole.
Yeah.
Wow. I learned something today. Thank you for educating me about cornholes.
Yeah, but not just the game. Designing the boards for the past few years, I've been really into painting on wood as the canvas. And I like to paint cornhole boards, and I'm collaborating with a friend of ours that we play board games with, and he's putting in LED lighting so you can play at night and you can see it lit up. So that's been a passion of mine. But I remember a few years ago, I tried to make a website that was based on my cornhole boards, and I called it Cornhole Creations. And my friend was like, ooh, I don't know if I would call it that, Megan. I was like, oh, yeah, maybe not. Anyways, that's one of my hobbies. Other than that, I've been watching a lot of trash TV, including Love Island. Including but not limited to. I had to stop. Love Island, Bachelor, Too Hot to Handle, Love is Blind, and Temptation Island.
That's a lot of. That sounds like a lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff that lowers your IQ, Chris.
Yeah. Well, that I don't want to insult you, but
no, I'm insulting myself. I've opened that door. Like, if you've watched the most recent season of The Bachelor, why am I forgetting his name? God, he just like, it's like so whitewashed and like there's no representation. And the representation, it's just like two blonde people getting together again. And I'm like, oh, great. I wonder who the next Bachelorette's going to be.
Probably the blonde, right?
Well, no, this past one, they picked two girls that lost. So like the second and third place people. And then they were like, plot twist, the next Bachelorette's going to be two hosts. And they're like sitting there, how's this going to work? Are we going to be getting the same contestants? And they're like, yeah, we don't know. So gotta stay tuned for that. But all the other shows, pretty much a bunch of hot people on an island. Too Hot to Handle is particularly funny because they're not supposed to have sex or like have any sort of relation to each other sexually, like not even holding hands. Actually, I think that they can hold hands. They can't kiss.
Okay.
And so they start off with a group of 20 contestants, and they start off with like, I don't know, 100K that they can share. And each time someone violates the
They have to
rule,
manage money together?
They have to, yeah, they don't.
But
They
you
have
said
to.
that's part of the challenge. They're given
Yeah.
$100,000
That they can, if they,
to collectively manage.
yeah, so they start with that, but every time someone violates the rule of not doing something sexual with
So
someone
people
else,
decide to engage in adult activities.
Like, you
they
have-
lose money.
yeah, you have, okay, the whole idea of the show is like, you have 1 or 2 months. Actually, I don't even think it's that long. You have 1 month on this island. You have so many things you can do other than shoving your tongue down someone's throat. And like,
So if
literally the first 5 minutes, you get a...
if two people just can't handle themselves and just need to go for it
Yes.
110%,
Yeah.
like they go all the way, how much of the money do they lose?
Oh, I think it's like a couple grand if they
Oh.
go all the way. But
Shoot, that almost sounds worth it. I mean,
no, oh my God. You always get a couple of contestants that are like, are you serious?
if it was like
Put it in
10
your
grand or 20 grand that they lost for it, like, okay, don't do that. But you're like, oh, you lose like 2%. Like, okay, whatever. Could be
my
worth
God.
it if they're really like that into each other, you know? I'm just, just a thought.
Yeah. They're just sitting on the couch looking at each other like, oh my God, I cannot.
But it is the
cannot do
whole point of the game, I guess, is to...
It's entertaining.
Yeah, they want the penalty to be low enough that people are tempted to actually
Yeah.
do it so that they do it.
Yeah.
That's
And the viewers
It's a
are just
weird
watching like,
fine line they ride.
can you get like a crossword puzzle or play Quirtle or Wordle or something like...
Right, like normal people would do if they
Just
had
look
that
away.
challenge. But see, the producers, I'm sure, specifically don't want them to do that.
Oh, yeah.
They want to encourage the bad behavior because that's what sells.
Producers. Kiss her.
Right.
Slap her on the butt.
I'm sure that's
It's terrible.
That's exactly what they say off camera. I can almost guarantee
Objectification.
it.
Ugh. Anyways, I
yeah.
hate these shows, but I love these shows.
That's cool that you watch that.
Is it?
I'm not. I don't know. I don't.
I'm pretty
just,
ashamed.
I'm just trying to be nice.
That's really cool. You're like a wholesome person for watching those shows.
That is not what I said.
Oh
For the
god.
record.
I just scratched the surface on these shows. They both have a lot of substance and not a lot of substance. A lot of stuff to make fun of, but not a lot of substance because it's the same concept, like I said.
Yeah.
You're hot, I'm going to kiss you, and then sooner or later, 2 weeks after we decided to be boyfriend and girlfriend, we're realizing that we don't like the way each other choose our food.
Well, especially
So
if you
we're
found
not-
each other on a reality TV show. Probably not the best foundation for a relationship.
How did you meet? Love Island. Too hot to handle.
Yeah, right.
We
I don't-
conceived you on that show.
Yeah. There could be a few of those, but
Anyway, it's trash. It's trash hour. Shoot
Yeah.
the shit. Trash hour.
you know, there's shows that I like to watch that I wouldn't describe as favorites that, you know, just allow me to turn my brain off and just space and just have it on as background noise. So, you know, like not everything you watch has to be intelligent.
There's not much to comprehend.
Yeah, you can just have it on in the background and, you know, be scrolling through Reddit on your phone and doing other things, and it's not like you're worried about missing anything, you know.
As opposed to the videos that Rob puts on of like how-to videos for new board games. He's like, Megan, you should watch this before we play this game so you have some familiarization with the game. And it seriously takes every bit of brain power for me to like, okay, 5 minutes in and there's 50 minutes left of this game. Oh my God.
Yeah, that sounds pretty slow.
I do love him,
definitely-
so I do it.
That's so kind of you. When he describes rules of a board game to me, I just zone out the whole time. And then when it's time to play, I'm like, okay, now what do I do?
Yeah.
I learned by doing, so I need you to just tell me what to do, and then after a few turns, I'll figure out what to do.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have played games before. We're
Yeah.
the total same with. We need to just jump in because everything you're saying is like Charlie Brown, like wow, 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 wow.
Right. It's just hard for me to focus on it. You know, I'm ADD and I'm very hands on, so hearing doesn't do much for me, but doing definitely helpful. And sometimes it's unavoidable, and sometimes there's things that I'm super interested in and that you can only learn about by hearing, like, you know, an economics lecture. Like that can be engaging, and I'll actually listen to it and follow most of what they're saying. But I do find myself missing points, and I'll have to like run it back 30 seconds and re-listen to the same thing 2 or 3 times to let it soak in. And it doesn't really work that way when someone's explaining the words of a board game to you. You don't just have the 30-second replay button. It would, you know, it's
Can you
just
say that again? Can you say that again?
It's just
I was not
easier
listening. Can you say that again?
Yeah, it's easier and it's more fun. You know, you're sitting down at a table, the board game's all set up, you're ready to go, and then it's like, now sit and listen. It's like, no, let me just play and
Yeah.
figure it out as I go along. You can help me out. The first game doesn't have to count. It can just be a learning game, and then we can play again and actually, you know, play
Yeah.
a real round.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that got a little bit off track. That's okay.
I think that's gonna happen.
That's a little bit of story time. We told some stories about playing board games with Rob.
Do you have any other stories? How are you doing from your
Yeah, yesterday.
event?
Yeah.
Sorry to bring it up.
yeah, yeah. I got it in a car accident yesterday for the first time in probably close to 10 years, if not, you know, close to that. It could have been a full 10 years. I don't even remember when my last accident was, and I've lived in 2 different states since my last accident. I've never been in one since I left my home state back in 2015, and it was probably a few years before that when I had my last one. I try to be a really good driver and be really careful. And yesterday I was driving home from visiting with some friends, and a vehicle made a left turn in front of me, you know, so they were going the opposite direction and turned left, so they're turning across my lane of travel. And it was a 1-lane road, so the only thing I could do was slam the brakes. If I had gone left, I would have been driving into opposing traffic. If I had gone swerved to the right, I would have been going into the direction that the car was traveling. So hitting them more instead of hitting them less. That wasn't a good option. So the only thing I could do was just slam the brakes. And it's really good that I was actually not distracted at all when it happened. I was looking straight ahead, so I was able to hit the brakes immediately and very firmly, and avoided a potentially very dangerous collision. The other vehicle had a passenger in the back seat on the passenger side, and had I not stopped as quickly as I did, I would have just straight up T-boned them right into the side of that passenger back door. I was able to stop enough that I just clipped the back right corner, like the tail light of their car, with the front right corner of my vehicle. So just, cosmetic damage, mostly as far as I can tell so far. Still have yet to take it to the shop, but
Where are you from originally? Because I feel like people in Seattle, there's just like a mishmash of a bunch of different types of drivers. Like East Coast, everyone's kind of driving really aggressively, but it works because everybody knows what to expect. But at a four-way intersection here, you can see like, now you go.
In my experience, everyone is a bad driver in every city I've lived in, which is just
way too easy to get your license.
Yeah.
SpongeBob SquarePants out here.
To answer your question, I'm originally from Michigan, and then I lived in Minnesota for 5 years, and then came to Seattle in late 2019. So I got here just in time for COVID. But Seattle has still been a great place to live, even with all the COVID stuff going on. I've embraced the city, and I love it overall. But so after the accident happened yesterday, I spent the next 4 to 5 hours of my life calming myself down, calling the authorities, working through that. Oddly enough, in the state of Washington, the police are not at all required to come to the scene of an accident. You are allowed to just exchange information with the other driver and take off and go on your way, as long as no one is injured. If you don't need any emergency services, if the vehicles are operable, or you want to call your own tow truck or whatever, as long as no one is hurt, in my understanding from what transpired yesterday, the cops don't even need to show up.
They can stay at Starbucks eating donuts.
Wow. At first we were waiting, and we waited for over an hour, and then I called back and was like, can you give me any kind of ETA? Like, what's the process? And they're like, oh, well, you don't really need to wait. Like, they're not going to do anything other than make sure that you and the other driver exchange all of the appropriate information. And he just rattled off on the phone, like, everything that we needed to exchange. And I was like, yeah, we got that covered. And he was like, okay, you can just leave and go home and just go onto the Washington State Patrol website, and you fill out your own report online.
Oh my gosh.
And then it just gives you a PDF of the report, and you use that for your insurance. So it's literally just a form you fill out on the internet when you get in a car accident in this state. Where I'm from in Michigan, if you leave the scene of an accident before the police show up, you're like automatically at fault. You can face criminal charges. Your insurance won't pay for anything because you basically, it was a hit and run is what they consider that. You fled, so you're automatically assumed guilty. And so I was like, that was the last time I'd been in an accident, was in that state. So I had to ask the police operator like 8 times, like, you're sure I can leave? Like, this isn't going to mess up my insurance?
You're not new here? You're not just taking the...
Right?
Pulling
like,
this out?
Is new to me. You probably know more than I do, but I need to be sure because I need my insurance to pay for this. Like, my car is pretty jacked up. Like, I'm not going to drive around with a mangled front end. Even if
Slap it on the hood. Needs work.
Even if it is just the corner, I want that fixed. So...
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're okay.
Yeah, I got it all done, and I was able to sleep last night after I calmed down. I got the police report done through the Washington State Patrol website. I started my insurance claim. I took photos of everything, was able to edit all the photos, So they looked nice and were cropped and showing and highlighting the damage accurately. And got all the photos uploaded to my insurance's claim portal and uploaded the supporting documentation. Like the other driver wrote down all of his info, so I took a picture of that notepad and, cropped it so it was just the information and uploaded that and just covered all the bases.
So much to do after an accident. I'd be like more upset about the paperwork than I would be about like any.
It's stressful. I want to make sure I do it all right and it's all accurate so that I can actually get my car fixed and insurance will cover it and not try to say that I did something wrong and that it's not covered.
You write your own report. You did nothing wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I did write it honestly and explain to the situation as clearly as possible. I know that I had the light. There was, some people on the street that saw everything that happened, and they, assured me that, my light was green and that I didn't miss anything. I even remember in the moment as I was hitting my brakes, because I knew that was all I could do was hit the brakes. I had nowhere to go. So while I was on the brakes, it didn't hurt anything for me to glance up, and I looked up at the light just to make sure, like, it was green, right? And I remember seeing it green and then looking back down and hoping I wouldn't hit them and thinking about the absurdity of the fact that they are definitely running the light. Like, why is this happening all at the same moment? And it was just like a lot, and I was really anxious afterwards, and we're waiting for the cops, and the guys, being the other guy, as you would expect.
Was he cool about it, or was he...
He was pretty cool about it. He acknowledged that it was his fault and had some extenuating circumstances, his own side of the story, excuse, whatever you want to call it, that he told. And I was like, I know it sucks, I'm sorry, but I have to make sure that I do this right, because I don't want to, make it any worse for me than it already is, and I just need to get this taken care of with my insurance. And he was pretty understanding about all of that, and we got it done.
That's good.
Because they were okay with us leaving, at least he didn't have to worry about answering to a police officer for being at fault and potentially facing a huge ticket. Instead he was able to just go home, and I think Washington is a no-fault state, so for the sake of damages and stuff, it doesn't really matter whose fault it was, but, I know that I wasn't at fault, so that's good. I just wish I'd been able to stop a little bit faster. I thought in the moment that I might have, I was, as it was happening, I was like, I might miss him, I might avoid this. Maybe I'm stopping fast enough, and then it just clipped that corner at the end.
Speaking
I was like, so close.
Speaking of situations that are your fault, I got a rental car a few years ago, and it was a huge SUV. I don't know what it was. I really don't know anything about cars, but big white car, and I'm driving this around, and it's in December, January. It's really icy out. And I am super impatient, so I don't wait for my car to defrost. And I'm at my parents' house, and I'm trying to back up and change locations to the other driveway. And my mom's out there, and I inch forward, and I thought I had enough of the windshield cleared to move, but I apparently didn't. I felt a huge crash. I was like, what did I hit? My mom's like, me! It's like, oh shit. So I mean, because of the temperature, I think what happened was the material of the part of the car that got cracked was brittle because of the temperature.
Yeah.
I can't confirm that, but
I mean, it sounds logical.
I went inside afterwards.
I'd buy it.
And had to tell my dad, and my dad's like, "Oh my God, Megan." So, yeah. And then had to return it with the crack, and wow. There's a whole nother story there, but we're running out of time.
But on the plus side with mine, the last couple things, I found a body shop with amazing reviews that's just down the street from my house. So I'll be able to take it there, and it's literally like a 5-minute walk home, maybe less than 5 minutes. It's like 2 blocks away. So that'll make it super easy. My insurance also has rental car coverage, so if it takes a while to get fixed, I'll have a rental car. It'll still cost me a little bit because rental car prices are so high in Seattle. State Farm allots $25 a day for your rental car, and in most suburban towns, you can get a rental car for like $20 a day. But in Seattle, it's like $29 a day. So it'll cost me like $4 a day, give or take, to have a rental car. But that sounds pretty worth it to
No. Yeah.
be able to
Less
get
than a
around.
Starbucks.
Yeah, I'll take
Pay
it.
way too much for
And
Nikon.
hopefully I only need it for, a week or less.
Yeah.
And if they can get the car done quickly, if we time it out right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, the hard part's over, I think. And now I
good.
just got to, hope that everything goes okay at that repair shop.
Sure.
But, that's my story for the week. Did you have a story to tell?
Have you ever been to an auction before?
Oh, I've been to lots. I grew up going to those redneck auctions where the auctioneer does the talking really fast with that southern draw. I can't even do an impression of it, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, that classic auctioneer thing. And I've been to those classy silent auctions where you write it down on a piece of paper at a company event or what have you.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had our school auction, and it was on the top of Newcastle Golf Club, so really ritzy.
Oh,
and I
was
drive
it a silent auction?
Part of it was silent,
Sorry,
part of
back
it
to your
was
story.
active.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. And so not only do I show up right when dinner starts, this thing starts at 6, but I show up at 7:30 with my coworker, and I'm like fashionably late. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry.
I think that's a little more than fashionably when it's
No,
a
that's
classy
pretty
affair like
bad.
that.
That's pretty bad. Everyone was there, and I'm like, okay.
You walk in the door
We
and the whole
just,
room
like-
goes silent and they all just look at you.
People were like, what happened, Megan? I'm like, it's partly my time management, partly traffic, I don't know. Anyways, we show up and we're just wincing walking into this place. I'm like, okay, well, just in time for dinner, I guess. Like, I walk into someone handing out bread to me, so that was great.
Well, at least they were handing you food.
Anyways.
If somebody's going to give you a hard time, the least they
I
can
know.
do is hand you food.
I'm like, I am emotionally disturbed by the fact that I'm this late. Please give me some bread. And then I went up to the wine counter. I'm like, hey, can I get some wine? They're like, oh, no, we're going to deliver it to your table. And I'm like, that's not going to work because you're going to forget about us.
What-
Anyways, I said,
Why did you
No, I
think they
didn't
were
say
gonna
that.
forget?
Huh?
Why did you think they were going to forget? Why did you?
because it was so busy and they had other
okay.
food that they were delivering. And I'm like, you don't understand. I
So you
want
were just-
wine now.
You were just worried about it getting lost in the shuffle, and
Yeah.
your urgency for wine in that
know.
moment was very high.
I felt kind of bad because they're working so hard. And the fact that I want wine and showed up an hour and a half late is like, I don't take priority here, Chris. Anyways, but we eventually got our wine.
But
and
you had that need.
I did have that need.
That
yes.
doesn't change.
We have needs and wants. We all do. But I had that need. Anyways, I sat with the first grade team, and I mean, I can't bid on any of these items. The starting bid was like $5,000-$6,000 for these things, and I'm like, okay.
Wow.
And so,
What kinds of things were they auctioning off?
head of school for the day. So what happens is the family bids on it, and if they win it, their child gets to be quote unquote head of school for the day. So our
it's
head
a,
of school,
It's a
will, like-
meaningless, symbolic way to raise money.
yeah, it's like my family's richer than yours,
It's fundraiser shtick. Yeah.
But
Okay.
but it all goes to a good cause.
Right. Which
so
is the school.
yeah, and then
Okay.
so every auction has a focus point that
This is a private school
it's an independent school. Yeah,
that
I'm not gonna
is
get into it.
that operates with a profit
Yeah.
motive.
Yes.
They're a for-profit.
Yes.
And they're doing a fundraiser.
So most of their
Okay.
operating budget is from tuition, and then
Yeah.
the others are from the auction. That's actually the second biggest, and then other fundraising events, like
Okay.
alumni association and whatnot.
Okay.
But I mean, I've never really been into the feeling of an auction because of like for equity purposes. However,
Well, when it's all rich people,
I mean,
let them.
there's some families that are, yeah, like you can make that argument. I won't get into it, but
Yeah, no, I know it's more. It's definitely more nuanced than that. But I just mean in general,
Yeah.
like when you're talking about fancy galas raising money for X cause or whatever, especially in the nonprofit world, which is why I was making sure to point out that this is a for-profit institution raising money for a, quote, good cause. So in the nonprofit world especially, you have those rich fancy galas, and rich people want to win those silent auctions. Like, that's great. Whatever it takes to get the money into better hands than theirs.
Well, the focus point this year was pretty cool. It's to renovate our drama and art. It's for our drama and arts and movement program. Okay. So it's to renovate our lighting and sound system for our theatrical performances, which I think is really great. And I think any focus on the arts and just keeping that alive for students. I mean, I think a lot of schools have experienced traumatic, honestly, like really big loss from a cutting in funding for these programs. So I'm glad that our school makes that a priority. I definitely think, as a side note, part of the proceeds for that really should be for counseling services, especially for our middle schoolers who are really, really like going through a huge transition in their lives. I mean, a lot of them are applying. They're still in the application process, even for a high school. Yeah. They're coming out of a pandemic. They're going through, just being a teenager and going through those transitions. And it's like, okay, why are we spending money on iPads and all these things? That's not to say that I don't put high value in arts and drama. I mean, every school really needs a robust program like this.
Well, and it's a balance. You need technology and tools to do the job. But the balance is
think it's highly pertinent right now.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. There are some things that should be prioritized over iPads.
That's my opinion. Yeah. iPads are cool. I have one. I love it.
I think we're getting off into qualified opinion territory.
Oh, I know. But, we need to stick to what we don't know.
More that you wanted to share about your story?
With the auction? I just thought it was funny that I really can't pay for anything, and it's just like these people are so rich. But they're
it was mostly a silent auction then, like when you walked in and the thing.
No, we had our paddles and whatnot.
So you're sitting there with your paddle while they're bidding on head of school for the day, and you're just like keeping your paddle down between your knees, like, I don't want anybody to see this paddle.
And it's like, yikes. And then we did a cake run. So did it feel
a little awkward, just like sitting there, basically never raising your paddle through all of that?
It didn't, because I was at a table of all of the paddles down as well. So we were all just like, I guess we're in this together.
You were at the
we're at the poor kids table.
Yeah.
But one last thing that was really kind of funny. I was really out of it because at that point I had like 2.5 glasses of wine, so I wasn't totally present, and it was cake time or dessert time, and they were doing a cake dash, and I misunderstood the assignment, but I was volunteered by my table to be the runner for this thing. So the idea is, like, when they call your number table, you have to run and get, they had all of us run at once, and then you had to get the cake that you wanted. So my whole table was like, chocolate. And I'm like, okay, I don't know why they're chanting this. And then I walk up and they call our tables to go get the cakes. And I am midway in a conversation with the technology teacher. And they're like, Megan, we could have gotten the chocolate cake. You're just too distracted.
So you just didn't hear them and didn't get up from the table?
No, I got it from the table and I was right by the cake table.
But you grabbed the wrong cake, or just didn't get to it fast enough? I didn't grab a
cake in general, so they had to take it.
So you just didn't get to it fast enough? Is that what happened?
That's the long-winded way of saying I didn't get the cake that my table wanted. But
failed. Did you get another cake?
We got cupcakes that were really good.
So you grabbed them? You did grab a cake thing off of the table. It wasn't a complete fail.
Not a complete fail.
Okay.
I guess you could say, if you're giving me any credit for the situation, but
well, I'm just trying to understand what happened, and I feel like they're being ungrateful. If you did the thing you were supposed to do. You
got you cake
and grabbed cake.
One of those cupcakes was chocolate. Like, deal with it.
I'm sorry that all of the cake wasn't chocolate, but I got you cake. Like,
If you want a chocolate cake, I'll shove it in your mailbox at home, at work.
That's like a kid complaining that, there's not hot dogs in their mac and cheese.
They were just giving me shit.
Deal with it.
They were just giving me shit. They weren't serious.
Well, I hope you made it. I hope you also, in jest, replied, I'm sorry I got you cupcakes.
Oh, we were totally joking around. But I just found it funny because awesome. Another classic Megan moment of just, I had one job.
Right. Did that situation give you any stress or anxiety, Megan?
Oh, God. What a good segue. No, because I was drinking wine.
Such a transparent segue.
I was drinking wine, so I felt no anxiety.
Well, now we're already on to a coping mechanism. And, this is about managing stress and anxiety, so you were already managing it.
I mean, yoga in a corner versus drinking a bunch of wine. One's a little bit more societally accepted.
Does wine count as a managing technique?
I'd say do everything in moderation. Don't always pick wine.
Having a couple of glasses of wine
sure helps, especially in social situations.
Even having 2 glasses a day, I think, is not excessive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Step 1, easy fix, everybody out there. The 10 listeners that we have. If you're feeling stressed or anxious, just drink a glass of wine.
Drink a glass of wine, forget about the cake.
But
and then eat the one you're left with.
You also probably already knew about wine. So we're not telling you anything you didn't already know. But, maybe we're just reinforcing and giving some, was it empathy or reinforcement, maybe is a good word, that there's no shame in having a drink or 2 each evening if that helps you wind down.
There's also no shame in not drinking alcohol at all.
Oh yeah, I don't really drink. I have maybe
some people feel way better.
One drink a month, but I just think that people who do, the people I know who do, sometimes beat themselves up about it. Like, oh, I drink too much. This is a terrible coping mechanism. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, you have 1 or 2 drinks a night. Don't sweat it. Just be okay with it. It works. It helps. You're not taking it to an excessive degree. Don't give yourself a hard time about it. Yeah.
I'll let my doctor evaluate whether or not that's healthy.
Yeah, that's between you and your doctor. You don't need to feel bad about that to anyone else.
Totally. As long as I'm giving the correct, do you drink 1 to 3 a week? And I'm like, oh my God, now I have to do math. I drink a lot of seltzers.
Yeah.
I'm like, is that technically a drink? A seltzer? Because it's so low percentage.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends. You kind of have to... I guess if I was answering that question to the doctor, I would sort of... If a seltzer is half the alcohol content of other beverages, right, I might just count each 2 of those as 1. Mm-hmm. Just so you're being, honest about your overall alcohol intake, not necessarily...
Let's just say I'm not putting this in MyFitnessPal, so I have no record. Right. MyFitnessPal would be like, alert!
This is all off the record.
Don't do it.
Right.
Anyways, we should probably get into our main content.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're talking about, managing stress and anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess so.
We did that. Remember that segue that you
complimented me on? Yeah. I got way too swept up in it. So what sort of things stress you out? Because I'm going to get us started. I'm going to ask you, and then I'm going to get us started.
Are you asking me? Or
yeah,
are you
I'll ask
started?
You. I'll ask
what
you.
What stresses me out? Well, we talked a little bit about this, obviously, in preparation for the episode, and I get stressed out when there's uncertainty in a situation in the short term, something that needs to play out or is going to play out fairly quickly, one particular isolated thing. But if there's a pause because some part of that situation can't be resolved for a period of time, whether it's a few minutes or a few hours or what have you, or even days, God forbid. It really bothers me not knowing how things are going to play out. I'm a linear thinker. Things go A, B, C, D in order down the list, and I like to get the list to completion.
Yeah.
And figure out how everything's going to tie out in the end. And if I have to just stop and just hang in the balance for a while, not knowing what's going to happen next or how the situation is going to play out, that makes me nervous and uncomfortable.
Yeah, there's just been this whole especially with the pandemic, I'm going to go back to it because it's just such a influential part for everyone's lives. But like this whole resilience piece and going back to, oh, you're so resilient. You're so resilient. And at some point you have to kind of draw a line of like, what do we need as human beings? Some sort of structure, and like, where do we find that? And I don't know. For me, the long term freaks me out, like not knowing if something is going to stay consistent for a long period of time. And Rob and I have had a lot of conversations about it, and talking about a number of different contexts. But he's like, Megan, there's no certainty in anything. And he personally finds comfort in knowing that because that's a constant for him. But I really have not wrapped my head around, like, I want some sort of reassurance in the future. And I don't really know what's reasonable and what's not.
Well, I mean, in the big picture, I like a little bit of uncertainty. I like not knowing what's around the corner. It's a little bit of mystery and intrigue in life. And it's also a bit of a numbers game or a probability thing. You know, there's certain things that are likelihoods, like my relationship is going well, so I trust that 6 months from now I'm still going to be in that relationship.
Yeah.
I'm alive, and I trust that I'm still going to be alive. So the former has, you know, maybe a 75% chance of likelihood that you sort of believe in your head. And the being alive, maybe you rank that a bit higher. Maybe there's like, you think there's a 95% chance that you're still going to be alive in 6 months or a year. Yeah. But when it comes to, am I going to have the same car in 6 months to a year? Because, you know, car accidents happen. Maybe you'll total your car out and get a new one. Your certainty on that might be more like 50%. And I think your brain runs these calculations unconsciously all the time.
Yeah.
But if you have anxiety about it, maybe being more conscious of those different things and what probabilities are and what may or may not happen, maybe that could help.
Well, you know, the interesting thing about some of the more severe bouts of anxiety, you create this narrative in your head and you look for the things that stay consistent with that narrative to feel at ease with the world, because it's the fear of the unknown, right? Mm-hmm. So I have a bunch of narratives, especially with like my relationship and my work, the health of, just like my job security and whatnot. And a little bit of it has something to do with like your security as a person and like how secure you feel in yourself and your abilities and everything. But that narrative can be so strong that it becomes reality for you. So everything else in life follows suit. So
yeah, I'd imagine
like,
you'd have to be careful about
thinking of that
narrative.
But like thinking about what the likelihood is of something happening in your brain, you're like, oh, it's highly likely because of X, Y, and Z that happened yesterday. Of course it's going to happen later, because you're really just constantly at battle with these things. And
yeah, I guess a lot of that depends on how your mind works and how pragmatic you are and how you perceive patterns.
Right.
And that can be different for each individual, wildly different.
Yeah. But like I said in the last episode, talking to you and listening to your feedback right now, it really helps to talk to someone who's a little bit more, not to say that I'm not objective at some points in time, but like you tend to think that way more often than I do. So like doing exercises like writing things down on a piece of paper that are true in the moment and not fabricated ideas in your head. That helps.
Right.
Yeah.
Sticking to the facts.
Sticking to the facts.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, God, Rob hates me. My boss hates me. She gives me like laser eyes every day. Like, I don't know. I think some weird
lists,
things.
All these things help me stay grounded.
Exactly. Yeah. Just having that as an anchor. But
yeah, that's a perfect word for it. It really is an anchor.
Yeah. But I mean, some of the, I think about reading into the like unspoken word, like social media behavior. We can also see some anxiety in that. And that's actually kind of funny if you think about it from an outside perspective. But like when you're texting someone, for example, do you ever get anxious when someone texts you with ... or ends with just a period? Like I read into that. I'm like,
what I do, the first thing I do there, because I have an analytical mind, the first thing I do if somebody ends a sentence in a text message, a regular text message, what we're talking about, with a period,
Yeah.
like it's a very formal looking sentence or that looks unusual, I will scroll through all of my conversation history with them and see, is that like their usual MO, or is it different? Because patterns are everything. If they do it like off and on, and they've done it a few other times in the past when the conversation wasn't tense or was very friendly and chill, then I'll be like, oh, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But if I'm going through and I'm like, oh, that was kind of a tense situation when they did it. In this other situation, we were kind of having an argument and they used a period, but they didn't use it anywhere else. Then I might be like, okay, I'm just always going to look for a pattern.
Yeah.
And that pattern is either going to be, confirmation bias or it's going to do the opposite and alleviate my anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
But, then you can use that information to move forward and try to be, maybe more compassionate or offer an apology if there was something that you might have said or did that set them off. And if you can correct the course before they even know that that there's a problem because you picked up on something subtle like that where maybe they weren't trying to show it overtly.
Yeah.
You might be able to course correct and make things better before it becomes a real problem.
Oh, totally.
So you can leverage that as an advantage.
Yeah.
But, be more analytical about it rather than just getting anxious.
Yeah.
Use all the information and tools at your disposal to crack the code.
Oh, gosh. In time, I will have that be more of a constant practice, but it's, I use a lot of emojis, and it's that nonverbal aspect of texting.
I love emojis. The last one I used was actually the red circle with the white bar in the middle, the do not enter sign, because I used that for punctuation at the end of a sentence when I was telling someone about my car accident. Like, this was a no-go.
Do not enter.
Yeah. I didn't mean it as a do not enter sign. There wasn't a do not enter sign at the accident.
Yeah.
But I just meant, you don't, it's undesirable. You don't want to go there. No bueno. It was just
thank you.
A generic, I don't want that, and it related to driving. And I also used a traffic light. So my last two are the do not enter sign and a traffic light. Because I'm a teenager and I communicate car accidents with emojis. That's what I do at 34 years old.
Poop emoji. Smiley poop emoji.
Yeah. The poop emoji actually is surprisingly not in the 4 rows of my recently used. The third one in my recently used is the wacky crazy face where one eye is bigger than the other and the mouth is open with the tongue out.
I have that one too.
I'm crazy. And I think that was used to describe my state of mind after the accident.
Hey.
This is just driving me crazy.
What's up?
So yeah,
that's what I hear when I see that.
All of my recent emojis tie in, but the other ones are fingers crossed and the smiling with the tongue out that I mentioned before. Stuff like that.
Some of the ones I have as my top 5 are all involving tears in one way.
Oh no.
No, but not sad.
Oh, like happy tears, crying, laughing so hard you cry.
I laugh 2 different ways. One, the face is right side up, and then one when I'm really laughing, the head's cocked. So that's the 2 emojis. Super, super funny. And then I have one that I've been using frequently. It was the steady stream of tears that look like a freaking slip and slide on the face. God, there's so much. Oh,
yeah, the bawling your eyes out one.
I think I used that for
I use that one
a
occasionally.
video of dogs, and then I was like,
I'm not usually that sad, but I like that emoji to just exaggerate it. When something really minuscule that's not at all sad happens, the McDonald's was out of apple pies, I'll send that, bawling face. It's a sarcastic cry. It takes a lot for me to actually be that upset, so I get more use out of it with sarcasm than sincerity.
I was going to say, we do a lesson for our kindergartners and first graders that's called Bump Hill Mountain, and it's meant to increase awareness of how big a problem is. And I would say that problem is a bump.
Yes. That reminds me of saying my mom always used to tell me when I was a kid when I'd get upset about things, she'd say, "You're making a mountain out of a molehill."
Yeah,
Have
that's
you
pretty
heard
much
that
the
one
same
before?
concept, yeah.
Have you heard that phrase before? Or
Oh,
is
yeah.
Okay, that's not unique to
I do that
my
a lot.
family. Right. I just meant the phrase itself.
I make a lot of mountains.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who do. And it used to always bug the snot out of me when my mom would use that phrase.
Never
But-
heard that expression.
Yeah, it bugged the crap out of me. The crap, snot,
Bug
whatever.
the snot, though?
Yeah, it would bug me a lot. And now, as an adult, though, I feel like I've embraced that philosophy, and I try to put everything in perspective and not make a mountain out of a molehill. So, thanks, Mom, for imparting that annoying wisdom upon me, and I still use it to this day. So, yeah, if you're listening, thanks, Mom. You're awesome. She is one of our few listeners, so
Is she?
maybe she might actually hear this.
What's her first name? Not her last
My
name?
mom's first name is Melody.
Thank you, Melody.
Yeah, with one L, not
With one-
two. So
Do melodies spell it with two
a lot
Ls?
of people spell it with two L's, and hers was one. It's been a whole thing in her life with like IDs and licenses and things getting misspelled, and like the name has to
Ls?
match.
Usually,
I think the melody as the melody of a song is
That's
one
one
L.
L.
But when it's used as a name, it is most commonly spelled with two.
oh no, I have a friend named Melody, and it's only one.
Oh,
I'm trying to imagine it in my head.
well,
That's
I
a
don't
lot
know.
of L's.
I think maybe people are just dumb and mess it up. I could be wrong. All I know is there's been a lot
Did
of
you look at a
confusion.
Starbucks cup?
She's had to deal with some stuff with name matching because people would spell it wrong. But
My big thing is like,
I think she's mostly past
Yeah.
all that now. I think, no, that's what it was. People kept misspelling it. And so she actually went and got a legal alias. You know, you can like register a nickname or a name for yourself so it's legally your name, but you can still keep your original birth name. You don't have to change it. You can have an additional name.
okay.
So like an ambiguation of your name. And so she actually registered a legal alias, I believe, with the 2L spelling so that if somebody spells it wrong, it's still technically right because
Yeah.
both spellings are her. So yeah, that was
Spelling of some names.
that I think it took her a while to finally like find that hack so that, you know, she didn't have to deal with that anymore.
When people ask me how my name is spelled, I instinctually want to say the right way because it's not spelled with an H, but like I know that there are a fair number of people that spell it with an H, so I don't want to be offensive. But I've
Right.
seen Megan spelled in some crazy ways,
Where would
like
you put an
borderline putting an asterisk in there. Like
Where would you put an H in Megan?
Meg Hen.
MEGHAN.
M-E-G-H-N. Like, I don't hear that
Meghan.
H. Megan.
Yeah.
Megan.
Meg Hen. Like, yeah, that's a stretch.
Maybe H-M-E-G-A-N? Megan.
No. I think that's a little more of a stretch.
You can spell things.
maybe after the M, maybe it's Megan.
Chris, people are calling their babies like R2D2 or whatever. What is the name of what's his name? What's that? He's rich. He's like, what's his
I don't
name?
know. There's a lot of rich people.
Tesla.
What is his name?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Yeah.
What
yeah.
did he name his child?
I don't remember.
It's just like beep bop boop.
It's something weird. No,
Oh god.
just before that trend started, there was a trend of using less traditional but really cool sounding names for kids. Like I heard of someone, maybe it was a celebrity, I'm not sure. They named their kid Storm. I'm like, that is a badass name.
That's like Pokemon. Storm.
Yeah, like that's a badass
awesome.
name though. You know, like
Oh, yeah.
I'm cool with creative, cool names like that, but you know, when your name is like asterisk or, you know, it's like okay. When it's written, it's actually just a little asterisk on the paper. Like that's taking it a little too far.
Usually,
But to each their own, I guess. I mean, I don't want to yuck anyone's yum.
names are important too. Like I try really hard to make sure that I'm pronouncing names correctly because there's a lot of identity in that. However,
Yeah, I don't know as a kid
Asterisk?
how you'd react to that, but I know you can always find fault in your name. My name is Christopher, and I hate that. I still, to this day, have a grudge with my parents. Like, couldn't you have just wrote Chris on the birth certificate and saved me so much writing over a lifetime of signatures?
You as a kid saying your name? No.
So,
No.
Yeah.
Pointing.
So, you can always find fault in something. The kids are always going to find something to make fun of you for in your last name. Like, my last name is Hamilton, and when I was little, I was really skinny, and that's where Ham Bones came from. That was a teasing nickname that was used to make fun of me. And then as I got older, I just realized, well, Ham Bones has a fun sound and a good ring to it. I'm just going to embrace that and own it as a nickname of my choosing. And
Hamilton's a cool last name.
yeah, I think so. But when you're 8 and everybody's making fun of you and calling you Ham Bones mockingly, then it starts to feel crappy. So it's like whether your name is Beep Boop Beep or Asterisk, or your name is just Bob, people are gonna make fun of you.
Some of my first grader came up to me the other day, was like, "You're a pancake witch."
Wow.
And I'm just like,
They stepped it
okay. And then my coworker intervened and she's like, "So and so, don't say that about Miss, I'm not going to disclose my last name, Miss Blah." And then they felt all ashamed, and I'm like, I do not care that this person called me a pancake witch. Just like, let's work on the insults.
Right.
Yikes. Or just like, I think my response was like, "Okay, you're a refrigerator." Then it just I don't know. During situations like that, especially as a first grader. Yeah.
We were talking about absurd comedy, just things that are completely off the wall and unexpected.
Yeah.
That meets it.
my God.
Kids are definitely good at being absurd because they don't have like the confines of the world, cramming them into that box.
Oh, yeah.
So they are just out there in left field all the time. It's a great place to live. I envy that.
Oh, yeah.
I want to walk up to someone and just call them a pancake witch, but I'm not that creative. If I did it, I'd be copying them. I can't come up with my own.
You're a pizza goose. Or like, I don't know. You just pick two really, really different things and sandwich them together. And like, how did his brain think about that? I would love to get in the brain of a first grader. Just, what are you thinking about? Minecraft. Pancake witch. When's
really
lunch?
it.
When's lunch? I need to pick my nose. My God. Anyways, we got a little bit off anxiety.
Yeah.
Anything that you wanted to add on that?
No, I think we captured the essence of, we think about and talk about anxiety, and then we just joke around and riff on it, and having a friend to do that with, or maybe having this podcast to listen to if you don't, hopefully helps you feel a little bit better and relieve some of that anxiety. This is exactly the kind of, chill, enjoyable conversation that we wanted to capture.
This is a safe space,
Yeah, definitely.
I think.
I hope so. If you're
Is it
listening
safe?
and you're not down with this being a safe space, then we don't want you as a listener. I don't know how we can block you or stop you, but please,
Compliment us.
yeah, say nice things. Like we said, we want it to be honest, but we also don't, don't want anybody to be too mean.
Being a safe, it can be a safe space, but also a constructive space. Like,
Yeah.
send us, if we say something that you are offended by, we don't want you to skimp out on telling us.
Oh,
However,
yeah, for sure.
However, it's a safe space because that's how you grow. Like, you don't grow by not talking. I'm getting a little bit off track. I know that we're trying to wrap up here, but
Yeah.
like you,
It's okay.
but that's the thing that I've realized, especially because I've been reflecting on being a white educator and examining self-bias and diving into these conversations that I'm not necessarily used to having. And it's way more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just better to say something, even if you're afraid of it landing poorly. Like, someone's going to correct you, and then when you know better, you'll do better.
Yeah.
So,
And we're not intimidating, especially if you're just emailing us. You can email us from an anonymous email address. Even if you know us, you can go to Yahoo that no one uses anymore, and create an anonymous email address and tell us your honest thoughts if that's what you're most comfortable with. And we'd love to be able to engage with that. So hopefully you remember the password to that email, and if we get back to you, you can log in and see our response, and we can, we could even have a dialogue if there's anything somebody wants to express.
Did we share that password?
Not the password.
No.
But we are going to share the email address. So
we've gotten really a lot better at security.
yeah. We didn't record our password last time either. We did pause that.
We did the pause there.
Yep. Cool. But we do want to ask that you interact with us. The first way that you can do that is to subscribe. We would love if you're listening and haven't already to subscribe to our podcast. Again, the name of the podcast is Unqualified Opinions with Hambones and Megatron. And we should be on all of the podcast services now. So you should be able to find us at your favorite podcast app on any of those platforms. And be sure to turn on notifications with the little bell or the alert thing, whatever it is on your thing, so that you'll get notifications of new episodes, because our schedule is a little bit hit and miss.
Yeah.
It looks like we're going to be coming out with a new episode about every 2 to 4 weeks. So that's looking like the schedule, but so it's not very refined, and so notifications.
We'll figure it out. We'll iron it out.
But that's what notifications are for. Those are your friend.
I want to end with 2 things if we have time. 2 really, really quick things. 1, I really hope that this podcast makes you laugh in one way. And 2, I hope... What was the second thing?
I don't know. While you're thinking of it, another thing I was going to say is that if you do actually like listening to us, please tell your friends, spread the word. It is always more fun to do this when you have an audience. I think we're up to about 14 listeners, actually, for the first episode. So I think we have like 14 or 15 plays, and it says an estimated audience of 14 individual listeners. So that means with a margin of error, there's at least 10 people that have listened to the podcast. And so, that's cool. It's more than I expected, but more is better. And we would love to have a modest audience. So please, if you enjoy, share with your friends.
I remember number 2.
Cool.
You helped me remember.
Awesome.
I hope that this podcast gives you some sort of material that's a launching pad for a deeper conversation. Even if a lot of our topics and a lot of what we discussed is a pile of trash.
Right.
I hope you can pick out something that you're like, oh, I also have unqualified opinions that I'd like to maybe make a little bit more qualified over time by talking to people who are an expertise in this situation or in this topic. So that's all I have to say.
Yeah, and all the more reason to share it with your friends so they can hear our unqualified opinion, and you can have a conversation about it. But obviously that's not required. You can still talk to your friends about your ideas and thoughts, even if they also haven't listened to the podcast, because that's I know that's a big ask. But getting back to the email thing, if you do have any constructive feedback, questions, ideas for topics, stuff that you want to tell us about, or tell us how much you love or hate our show, shoot us an email. The email address is unqualifiedopinionspc@gmail.com.
Closing time. Turn out all the lights out.
But I think that's a wrap for us.
Yep.
I hope you all have a wonderful next couple of weeks until you hear from us again.
Yep. Bye.